Welcome to the Edgeworth Echoes podcast, discovering Edgeworth's town, a hidden gem of Irish history.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the Edgeworth Echoes podcast. This is your host, John. During Heritage Week 2025, the Mariah Edgeworth Centre was gifted a collection of books by Eamon de Burca of de Burca Rare Books. The donated books were a rare 8-volume set of the memoirs of Madame la Comtesse de Genlis. Adding to the value of the collection was the fact that the books were signed by Mariah Edgeworth. Madame de Genlis, who was born Stephanie Félicité de Crest in 1746, was one of France's most prolific writers and educators. She served as governess to the children of the Duke of Orleans and became famous for her innovative methods of teaching. Mariah Edgeworth, as a child, had worked on translating Madame de Genlis's work into English, and the two met in Paris in 1802. Discussing their shared interest in education. In this episode, I am going to take a look at the connections the Edgeworth family had with France down through the years. The Abbé Edgeworth was 4 years of age when his family moved to Toulouse in France. When he was older, he entered the priesthood, was educated and working and living in Paris, where he became a confidant of the royal family. Another Irishman, Francis Moylan, also studied for the priesthood in Toulouse and worked with the abbey in Paris. After ordination, they both served in the office of Christophe de Beaumont, Archbishop of Paris, Francis as a private secretary and the abbey as Vicar General of the Diocese of Paris, which made him responsible for overseeing the spiritual needs of the diocese in a period of intense upheaval and danger. The two men continued their friendship even after Moylan returned to Ireland, writing to each other for many years. This clip is an extract from one of those letters sent on 21st of May 1789.
I have been long in your debt, but it is my head and not my heart you must accuse. Other men with twice my business find time for all. Their days are long enough. Mine, of late, fly away I know not how, and they are commonly too short for the little I have to do. I cannot return you too many thanks for the kind desire you express of seeing me fixed on my native soil. Indeed, the prospect of living on the same land with you and of enjoying now and then your company is a most powerful attraction to my heart. But alas, it is the only one I feel. Ireland is a foreign country to me. You are almost the only friend I count in it. 38 years' absence have broke the very ties of blood with some of my relation and weakened them withal. The language itself sounds odd in my ears for want of use, and the few lines I am writing to you are a laborious task for me.
In addition to his duties with the royal family, the Abbé Edgeworth continued to minister to prisoners, the poor, and other persecuted Catholics in revolutionary Paris. He maintained religious services clandestinely during the suppression of the church and showed remarkable courage in fulfilling these duties despite the risk of arrest or death. One of his most notable official roles was serving as the confessor to King Louis XVI during the king's imprisonment. He administered the last rites to the king and accompanied him to the scaffold upon his execution in 1793. With the king and his wife dead, and his own life and that of his family in peril, the abbey remained in hiding for a time in France, before leaving for England and then to Latvia, where he passed away. The abbé's memoirs included a detailed description of the final days of Louis XVI. This extract recounts how the abbé came to be at the king's side.
I received a message from the king signifying the wish of that unfortunate monarch that I should attend him at his last moments, if the atrocity of his subjects should be contented with nothing less than his death. He hoped that I would not refuse him. He added that if the danger to which I must be exposed should appear to me too great, he begged that I would name another clergyman to attend him. He left the choice entirely to me. On the 20th of January, at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, a stranger called on me and presented to me a note containing these words: "The Executive Council, having business of the highest importance to communicate to citizen Edgeworth de Fremont, invites him to come instantly to its sittings." The stranger added that he had orders to accompany me, and that a carriage waited for us in the street. I went with him to the Tuileries, where the council held its meetings. The Minister of Justice first addressed me. "Are you," said he, "the citizen Edgeworth de Fremont?" I replied that I was. "Louis Capet," continued the minister, "having expressed to us his desire to have you near him at his last moment, we have sent for you to know whether you consent to the service he requires of you." I replied that since the king had signified his wishes and named me, it became my duty to attend him. "Then," pursues the minister, "you will go with me to the temple, whither I will conduct you." And immediately taking a bundle of papers from the table, whispered a moment with the other ministers, and going out in haste, ordered me to follow him. An escort of horse waited for us at the door with the minister's carriage, into which I got, and he followed me.
Meanwhile, in England, Richard Lovell Edgeworth, who had eloped to Scotland with Anna Maria Ellers and gotten married, had found himself falling for Honora Snyde, a woman he felt was more his intellectual equal. In order to resist the temptation of Honora, Richard went to France in 1770, to the city of Lyon. There he began work on a river management project on the Rhone River. He devised a barge which deposited rocks and soil to build up the new banks at points where the fast-flowing river was washing away all the material being placed there by older methods. In this extract, he talks of a warning he received from an old man about heavy rain and what happened as a result.
The old man warned that a tremendous flood might be expected in 10 days from the mountains of Savoy. I represented this to the company and proposed to employ more men and to engage, by increased wages, those who were already at work to continue every day till it was dark, but I could not persuade them to a sudden increase of their expenditure. At 5 or 6 o'clock one morning, I was awakened by a prodigious noise on the ramparts under my windows. I sprang out of bed and saw numbers of people rushing towards the Rhone. I foreboded the disaster, dressed myself, and hastened to the river. When I reached the Rhone, I beheld a tremendous sight. All the work of several weeks, carried on daily by nearly 100 men, had been swept away.
Richard Lovell took his son Richard with him to France, introducing the boy to Jean-Jacques Rousseau, a man that Richard Lovell Edgeworth admired, and who would influence his ideas on education. After meeting Rousseau, he sent his son to the school of the Oratorian brothers in Lyon. Richard Lovell remained in France until 1773, when his first wife died, and he returned to England to marry his second wife, Honora. When Richard returned to France in 1802, he was accompanied by his daughter Maria. Paris was important for Maria Edgeworth. It was here that she first found herself a literary celebrity in the wake of Practical Education and Belinda, both of which had been translated into French. She associated with André Morellet and Madame de Genlis. She met with Marc-Auguste Pictet, who had visited her in 1801 and who had her work translated into French. She also met Etienne Dumont, with whom she corresponded with regularly and who was a valued critic of her work. It was here, too, that she met Count Edelkrantz, a Swedish scientist who proposed marriage to her. Her father was in favour of the proposal, but Maria was not, and they parted company. While Maria was attracting attention from many people in Paris, and her father was considering staying in France for a longer term, the relationship between Britain and France was turning sour. As a result, on the 21st of January 1803, the Edgeworths were ordered by the police to leave the capital within 24 hours. A petition, signed by 18 leading literary, scientific and political authorities, was presented to the Citizen Grand Judge Claude Ambrose Regnier, praising the family and requesting that they be allowed to stay in France. The petition was successful and the police order was rescinded. However, there was growing evidence that France was preparing for war, and their friend Joachim Le Breton advised them to leave the country. The Edgeworths left Paris in February. Unfortunately, Maria's brother Lovell, who had gone to Switzerland and was hurrying back to catch up with the family, was arrested, along with a number of other British citizens, and imprisoned at Verdun until 1814, when they were finally released. In 1819, Maria's brother Sneyd and his wife travelled to Paris. In 1820, Maria took two of her sisters, Harriet and Fanny, to Paris, renting a flat in Faubourg Saint-Germain. She wrote a letter describing some of the city's attractions.
We are now in a magnificent hotel in a fine square formerly called Place de Louis XV, afterwards Place de la Révolution, and now Place de la Concorde. In this square, the guillotine was once at work night and day. Here, Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette died. On one side of this square are les Champs-Élysées, where the famous courtisane de l'Ancien Régime drove her triumphal car with horses shod with silver. What a mixture of things in this best of all possible worlds. Voltaire represented Paris by an image made of mud interspersed with precious stones. As far as I have seen, this seems to be not only an ingenious but a just emblem.
Among the people they met were some from Ireland, Lord and Lady Granard, as well as the Forbeses from Castle Forbes. They stayed in Paris for a few months before returning home to Edgeworthstown. Of course, the Edgeworths were not the only people making connections in France. A search on Google turned up the following interesting people: Arthur Dillon, who commanded a famous Irish regiment in the French army; Patrice de MacMahon, an Irish descent soldier and President of France; Patrick Darcy, an 18th century mathematician who studied and worked in France; Samuel Beckett, the writer, who received the Médaille de la Résistance for his work as a courier in the French resistance during World War II; James Joyce, an Irish writer whose presence and work are strongly connected to France, particularly Paris and Brittany; Augusta Holmes, a Parisian composer of Irish descent who composed the Ode Triomphale for the Revolution's centenary celebrations in 1889. So that ends this episode of the Edgeworth Echoes podcast. I hope you enjoyed the show and will continue to share and spread the word. Until the next time. If you are interested in learning more about the Society and the history they preserve, please visit www.mariaedgeworthcentre.com. You can sign up to our newsletter, book tours, learn about our annual literary festival, and read up on some of the remarkable people who have links to our town.
This has been the Edgeworth Echoes podcast, rediscovering history.